As we delve further into financial chaos, a lot of people don't think, including myself, about all the downstream effects of interest rate catastrophes. So the risk-free rate of bonds, meaning government bonds, it's been referred to as the risk-free rate. And what if they don't get a rate of return? What industries does that affect? I talked about this the other night in my live stream, but pensions get affected. We've seen pensions going bankrupt because pensions have to go out on the risk curve because if they can't make real rates of return in the market, what do they need to do? Or risk-free rates, what did they do? Like in England, what did they do? They went out on the risk curve by taking more and more leverage and buying more bonds, but more leverage means more upside. It also means more downside, correct? So all these things are happening, and it's not just affecting the pensions, it's affecting insurance. I was thinking about this the other day, like where do insurance companies put their piggy bank? Because companies are all about eliminating risk as much as possible, right? So they run these actuarial tables and they come out with premiums based off term, universal life, index universal life, etc., based off the risk in the market. And they need to protect that piggy bank. What rate of return can they get in the market? Meaning risk-free rate of return. And what are they going to charge their customers? If they can't get a good rate of return on bonds, what's going to happen to what their customers are paying? Especially, let me tell you this, especially if your premiums can fluctuate. Some insurance contracts, they don't fluctuate, others they do. And if they fluctuate, if your premiums fluctuate, what do you think is going to happen to your premiums if an insurance company can't get a risk-free rate of return? They're going to go way up. So let's take a look at this article from Investopedia. It says, do changes in interest rates affect the profitability of the insurance sector? The answer is yes. But let's take a read here. Interest rates are constantly fluctuating, as we know. They've been like Dogecoin over the last couple of years. Keep in mind, predictability is huge in the market. What the market hates is uncertainty. What did Jerome Powell say in December of 2021? We're not even thinking about raising interest rates. And then what did he do? He raised them to almost 5%. This influences the likelihood of any sweeping interest rate changes as well. In fact, when it comes to interest rates and insurance, interest rate risk for insurance companies is a significant factor in determining profitability. So all this means to you is your insurance company, i.e., could be at risk if they can't fluctuate premiums, if they're fixed, right? Because part of their actuarial table is them being able to get a real risk-free rate of return. So they could become unprofitable, meaning going out of business, or premiums are going up. Typically, if interest rates increase, the value of the bond and other fixed income investments will decrease. We've already talked about that. Although rate changes in either direction may affect the normal operations of an insurance company, an insurer's profitability typically rises and falls in concert as interest rate increases or decreases. So it's not just SVB, it's not just banks, it's insurance companies. Because you got to think about an insurance company to some degree as a bank. They have a lot of money, they run these actuarial tables, and they have to make a profit on that money. It's not just sitting in a bank, they have to make a real risk-free rate of return. So what can they do in the market today? Over the last year, they've lost money to inflation. So even if they're buying government bonds, the real rate of return is -1 or -2, -3, depending on inflation. Government advertised, of course. Let's keep reading. Affecting a change in assets. For one, any changes in interest rates can affect the assets of an insurance company because insurance companies have substantial investments in interest sensitive assets such as bonds. And what if they can't get that real risk free rate of return? Where do they go? Either they go out on the risk curve, like England did with the gilt market, meaning lever up, which isn't really risk free, higher upside, higher downside, right? Or they charge their customers more, therefore get less customers. Affecting a change in liabilities. Drops in interest rates can decrease an insurance company's liabilities by decreasing its future obligations to its policyholders. However, lower interest rates can also make the insurance company's products less attractive. Why? Because if they can't get a real risk free rate of return, they have to up their premiums, meaning less customers, resulting in lower sales and thus lower income in the form of premiums that the insurance company was available to invest. The net impact on the company's profitability is determined on whether the decrease in liabilities is greater or less than the reduction in assets that it is experienced. Layman's terms, what does this mean? Insurance companies, these behemoths, insurance companies are huge, multi-billion dollar industry, obviously. But home insurance, car insurance, all that isn't just this fix like, oh, they run these actuarial tables, like what they're going to charge you based off of what interest rate they can get in the market. That's part of the risk parameters they're running. So you need to ask yourself, what if they can't get a risk-free rate of return? What are they going to do? They're going to raise premiums. And certain things we can't avoid. Home insurance, that's kind of a necessity. Car insurance, by law, is a necessity. And then you got things like life insurance, term life, health. All these things require they don't require, but premiums must go up if they can't get a real risk-free rate of return. And I think that is what the government is going to have to do. What is a real risk-free rate of return in the market today? What is 10%? 10% of $32 trillion. It's $3.2 trillion a year. Then ask yourself how much we taken in taxes. About $4 to $4.5 trillion in taxes. So if the government was really giving a real risk-free rate of return, because inflation's going back up, folks. Right now, what the Federal Reserve is doing to lower inflation is destroy demand. So it's a lose-lose. Lose-lose. So they're destroying demand. Everyone thinks they're going to pivot. I'm one of those people that they're eventually going to have to pivot because the government can't afford higher interest rates. Again, ask yourself, 10% of 32 trillion is 3.2 trillion. How do they afford that? They take on more debt. That's called a death spiral. That's what's going to happen. So they cannot give a real risk-free rate of return. And who's going to be punished? Bondholders. Over the next decade, bondholders will be the losers because they have to deleverage somehow. And the way they're going to deleverage is eventually yield curve control because no one's going to want to buy the bonds. And who's going to be the buyer of last resort? The Federal Reserve, in my opinion. Love to know what you guys think in the comments below. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.